Thank you, and welcome to the October 2nd meeting of the Easthampton City Council. Could I have a roll call, please?
Justin Cobb.
Present.
Donald Sikowski.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Dan Hagan.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Chester Oglevitz.
Present.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Joy Winnie. Here. Nathan Ziegler.
Present. I have a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion on the table to accept the minutes of the September 18, 2013 meeting. Is there any comment or amendments to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Any objections? Motion passes. At this time, what I'd like to do is go to communications from elected officials and boards and committee. Councilor McCoy, you have the floor for a little bit.
No public speak time?
Oh, public speak time first. Thanks for the reminder. Before we begin that, we do have the opportunity for public speak. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the council on anything that's currently not on our public hearing agenda, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and do so.
John Mason, Parks and Recreation Director for the city here. I have a flyer I wanted to hand out to everyone.
Bag check for
And Pumpkin Fest.
Candy packing.
It'll be that day.
Thank you.
So the first event we have coming up this month is our Pumpkin Fest, which is Saturday, October 19th from noon to 6. We've added a few new features this year. We have a polka band coming in from 1 to 3 that'll be playing at Pavilion 4. We've also added more kids games. We are keeping the games and inflatables and all that stuff for the kids free to the community. It's also free to get into the park that day. A lot of interest so far from our pie baking and pie eating contest folks, so things are going well with that. We also have the Yappy Valley Dog Show is in the park that day, and that's from 12 to 2. And that'll be the second year that it's been in the park. It really worked out well last year. We're excited to have them back be a part of this. We also have our pumpkin carving contest that's in the park that day, and we give out prizes and things like that for our winners. So we hope everybody can attend. It should be a great day for the community. And then also we have the Rag Shack Parade. That'll be on the 29th this year with the rain date of the 30th. We start at 6:30, same route as usual. We'll end at the Williston Quadrangle, and we hope that everybody dresses in their Halloween costumes and has a good time. Does anybody have any questions regarding our upcoming events?
Any questions for the speaker?
No? All right,
No?
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who would like to step forward and address the council on an item that's currently not on the public hearing agenda? Please do so. Seeing none, we'll move on. Communications and correspondence. Councilor McCoy.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. We do have kind of one more official communication here from the mayor proclaiming October 24th, 2013 as United Nations Day. This is something that's done annually, and there is a series of statements about how the United Nations has played a role in our history. If you would like to read the whole proclamation, it is available at the office of the city clerk, but once again restating that October 24th, 2013 has been proclaimed United Nations Day by the mayor of Easthampton. Moving on, some election information for you. The absentee ballots are available for the October 8th special election. Important to note that you have until Monday, October 7th at noon to pick one up. Otherwise, you're no longer able to use the absentee ballot. If you'd like more information on voting, either absentee or in person, you can call the city clerk's office at 529-1460. Also a reminder that the special primary election for the open Senate seat, 2nd Hampshire Hampden Senate seat, is next Tuesday, October 8th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polling locations remain the same, so the way you have always voted, 3 and 4 at the high school, and 1, 2, and 5 at Whitebrook Middle School. There are no changes with the new high school, same polling locations. And I wanted to make mention that this month is indeed Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And some of our more tuned city councilors have dressed appropriately, and the rest of us are bound and determined to begin picnics on the 24th. So that concludes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor, communications?
Thank you, Mr. President. There's just one item on your agenda, and that's just attaching some correspondence for your future reference. As you may already be aware, the school department has requested that we try to make this building accessible on Fridays due to the needs of the schools when they're in operation and the administrative functions that happen here in support of the schools. That's really necessitated a serious look at security in the building, and so we have added visual security in the building. There are more cameras inside the building today that are operating and functional and recorded. There's an example of one directly above Councilor Psychowski, and it's really intended to give us the ability to understand what happens if something should happen with regards to entry to the building or unauthorized entry to the building. There will be an increase in operational costs that will be borne in the budget, but because of our solarization, we are going to be able to take some allocations of that solar energy that were previously going to the school department and allocate it against this building so that we'll be able to offset those costs. And so from a functional perspective, the school department is in fact going to pay for those additional costs by not getting those discounts that were associated with the solarization. There is also attached to my memo, fairly extensive correspondence from the employees in this building that were affected, the city employees in this building that were affected by the 4-day closing and the reduction in hours. And that has been provided for the record to the city council. And it's something I believe that the next administration may or may choose to or not choose to look at. But I wanted to make sure that there was some documentation of the employees' desire before I left office.
Thank you. Anything else?
If there are no questions, I have one other item that's not on the agenda. It's related to the information that was provided to you by the Park and Recreation Director. The Yappy Valley Dog Show will in fact be at the park, and I will again MC that show. And so I would encourage all of you with pups to please enter them. It's really a very fun show. And I'd love to be able to welcome you into the ring and to talk about your lovely animals during the dog show. I do not act as a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Council McCoy.
Yeah, Mayor, so at the moment, is there not a date for opening it up for Friday for the school? Is this?
Not at the moment, but we are waiting for one. So the security involved, the improvements involved video security, which has been completed. Some upgrade and changes in the locking mechanisms on the interior doors of the buildings to provide an added level of security and more dependable locking features on the interior doors. And the third item, which we haven't completed yet, is a installation of lockouts in the elevator car so that we are able to set the elevator so it may still access this floor on Fridays without opening on the floors that are actually closed. So that's the last step. I expect that work will be completed within the next 3 weeks or so. We were just able to find enough money in the budget to issue the purchase order. And we've had to cut purchase orders for Parsons Street School since heating season is coming up, and so that's really put a lot of pressure on the existing operating budget until the council decides what to do with the appropriation that you've gotten. But that work has been ordered, and I expect it'll be completed sometime during October.
Any other questions for the mayor on this topic? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a little bit of time. I'll go into some of the reports of standing committees, rules and government relations.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Finance, Councilor Hagan.
Tonight we'll have two public hearings later tonight, one on $11,000 funding for a post-employment actuarial study and $100,000 to correct a budgeting appropriation. Also, there's a request by the retirement board to accept a chapter 101. We did meet in subcommittee on this matter, and there was still a couple of questions that the committee wanted answered, but I do want to set a public hearing, so I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing on the request for the retirement board to accept an amendment of section 101, chapter 32 for our next meeting, which I believe is the 16th.
Any second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to set a public hearing for the request from the retirement board to accept amended sections 101 of chapter 32 for the next meeting, 10/16/13 at 6:15 in these chambers. Is there any further questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Councilor Hagan, you still have the floor.
Also, there's a $25,000 supplemental appropriation for plans for a study of the new football field, or possible new football field at White Brook Middle School, and I'd like to set a public hearing on that, so I'll do that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to set a public hearing for the supplemental appropriation of $25K for the plans and specification for the new football field at White Brook Middle School for the next meeting on the 16th at 6:15 in these chambers. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
And the only other item on our agenda, which the mayor just touched on a moment ago, is the $24,000 for electric fuel and heating at Parsons. Unfortunately, the finance director was on vacation last week, and the mayor did not attend our finance meeting, so no action was taken on that, and we hope to take it up at our next meeting, which will be October 9th at 6 p.m. in room 1.
Thank you. Anything else?
And that's it. That concludes finance.
Okay, we can go another one. Public safety, Councilor McCoy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just to update, we have, well, after tonight, we'll have 2 requests concerning signage in the city. Stop sign proposal at Garfield and Hiskin Avenue, and then there was some discussion about some of the signage on Mechanic Street. So we'd like to put those together. I am waiting for communications back from the chief of police so we can fit it with his schedule and tackle both those topics together, hopefully sometime, not next week, but the week after. But I can't, because I haven't heard from the chief, I can't set a date for that meeting yet, but I will certainly keep the city clerk apprised of when that date will be. Also, I believe 2 more street acceptances are coming today, and those will all also be lumped together as we investigate them more and find out everything we need for them. And as we know, we do have a public hearing tonight on the WEMCO request, but that completes my report.
You want to extend that?
10:18. Yes, I would like to, in the form of motion, ask for a 30-day extension for the stop sign proposal from Garfield Avenue and Hiskin Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to extend the request for a stop sign proposal of Garfield and Hiskin Avenue for 30 days. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. And does that conclude
That
your report?
concludes, thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to hear a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to open the public hearings. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Council McCoy, you're up first.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. We received a request from both from Western Mass Electric and from our city engineer concerning some electrical work for wire placement, conduit placement down at the intersection of East Street and Fort Hill Road. I believe a representative from WEMCO is here today, so I'll have him speak more specifically to the project. I can tell you that our city engineer signed off on the report, was in agreement of it. There was some question that Councilor Hagan and I had concerning were there going to be poles involved, and he said, no, not really, that all the wiring we're talking about is underground, so there is no need to include the usual wordage of maintaining site for municipal lines on the poles in this particular instance. I also just, Mr. Graish also made some reference to being a new people at Western Mass, and so there was question about, he thought it was fine, but he was just questioning the legality of everything, and so I did run it by our city solicitor just to make sure that he thought everything was as it should be, and he agreed that everything looked fine. There was no reason not to proceed with the public hearing tonight. So with your permission, I would like to call Mr. Fuller to the podium to discuss the project for us.
Thank you. Please state your name and your affiliation just for the record, please.
My name is Matthew Fuller. I'm the designer for the project that is presented with the council this evening. Essentially, what the project is a three-phase line extension to provide service to the new brewery that's to be put in on Fort Hill Road. The existing Wamiko facilities that come up Fort Hill Road from the opposite direction are not suitable to provide the power that the brewery needs. So we took a look at what we had in the area and decided that the most reliable economic way to provide service to this customer was to come off of the existing lines we had on East Street. We understand that the facilities in front of the homes on Fort Hill Road right now were fed with underground facilities, and the residents would have preferred it to remain that way. So what we were able to do in this instance was put in a brand new line from our facilities on East Street down Fort Hill Road, where we didn't currently have a three-phase supply. We were able to put a structure, or propose a structure rather, in line so that we can actually come back across Fort Hill Road to refeed where the existing pad mount transformer is now, so that the customers that are there are not susceptible to the overhead facility outages that they've experienced in the past. So later down the road, I would imagine probably springtime next year, should this pass, we would be looking to come across Fort Hill Road from the new line and pick up the pad mount that's there now. And it'll basically enhance the reliability for the customers that we have there now already. There won't be any poles installed along Fort Hill Road. All of the facilities will be undergrade. The reason that we're actually here for the petition now is to actually put the structure that I'm talking about in line with the new underground facilities. This is a little bit bigger than a pad mount transformer, but not by much, and it does sit flush with the with surface grade. So, are there any questions from the council?
The structure, that's in public land,
It is, yes.
in the public way? That's that pad we see right across the street from the
Correct.
transformer on the guy's front lawn?
Yep.
Okay.
There'll be a fiberglass structure placed on top of that. It's approximately 4 feet tall, about 4 feet wide in either direction. So it is a mild above grade structure, but definitely not as visible as a telephone pole for sure.
Councilor Hagan?
I took a ride down there. It looked like there were two pads.
Correct.
Is there two
There will be two, yes.
structures? So
Where
both the same size? I just remember two pads.
They're identical. Yep.
Okay.
There's a structure in the middle that'll serve the purpose of coming across the roadway, and also it can be used in the future if anybody ever was to put a building and require electric service in that field. We can also go back to that structure that's across from the existing customers on Fort Hill. The concrete that you see down towards the end of the line is where that three-phase line is going to stop, and where that line will come up and enter the property where the brewery is being constructed. And that's essentially where that line will stop for the time being, unless in the future there's a need to extend it down Fort Hill Road any farther past that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Council McCoy?
No?
Is there any member of the public who would like to step forward and address the council on this issue? Hearing none, Council McCoy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.
I would like to make in the form of a motion to request permission to relocate and install poles, wires, cables, and fixtures, including necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Location on Fort Hill Road, approximately 750 feet north of the intersection with East Street and Fort Hill Road. Reason is to install new primary in conduit installed by developer from pole 43/74 to 43/74-1X. Install above grade primary junction 43/74-1X times 2X. Install primary from 43/74-1X to 43/74-2X to customer at 20 Fort Hill Road. Primary form 43/74-1X to 62/10P to be installed at a later date. That's a form of motion.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second the motion.
Okay. We have the aforementioned motion on the table concerning WEMCO and their permission to do utility work on Fort Hill Road. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Councilor McCoy. Councilor Hagan, you are up next.
First public hearing on a finance item. I'll do a second reading. This is dated, interdepartmental transfer dated August 27th, 2013. Request is hereby made for approval of following appropriation. The amount requested, $11,000 to be transferred from the reserve fund, and that amount, $11,000, transferred to the Gatsby 45 actuarial study, and that amount of $11,000. The amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to provide funding for a mandated post-employment benefit actuarial study. This was a request, I believe, from the personnel director to the mayor, and something that has to be done for this particular Gatsby, I know, is the software that's used by the city, the schools, or no, maybe not. Go ahead, either the mayor or the finance director.
I believe it stands for Government Accounting Standards Boards, so it's a standard throughout municipal accounting in the state and probably nationally. I'm not really sure about that.
It is mandated, though, that we do this? I mean,
Every 2 years, yeah.
2 years.
Right there, mandated.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to report out?
Not on this.
Okay.
Mayor wants to speak.
Mayor,
And to be quite honest, it was an oversight on our part. It should have been included in the budget. It is a requirement, and just so it's a little clearer, this post-employment benefit is the cost of health insurance for retired employees. So that's a liability that we've currently calculated at about $27 million. And so that liability has to be calculated by every 2 years, and it has to be carried on our balance sheet as a liability. Right now, there is no mandate to fund that liability. There is a mandate to fund our retirement liability, which right now is somewhere around $18 million. So as you can see, the cost of employee health insurance in retirement is significantly higher than the cost of the retirement system. And we don't know, until there's a single payer system, I doubt that it's going to go down. But this should normally be a budgeted item. It was an oversight on my part, and so we do need to fund it.
Okay, are there any questions for any members of the council? Seeing none, is there any member of the public who would like to step forward and address the council on this issue? Seeing none, Councilor Hagan?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the council appropriate the amount of $11,000 to be transferred from the reserve fund to the actuarial study fund, and that amount, $11,000, to provide funding for a mandated post-employment benefit actuarial study.
Second.
We have a motion on the table for an interdepartmental transfer of $11,000 to provide funding for a mandated post-employment benefit actuarial study. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions or objections? Seeing none, motion passes. Councilor Hagan, you still have the floor.
Our second public hearing, I'll do a second reading also on this one, dated interdepartmental transfer dated September 3rd, 2013. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested, $100,000, to be transferred from interest expense in the amount of $100,000 and transferred to principal payment in the amount of $100,000. The amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to correct the purpose for this existing budget appropriation. I believe this is just an accounting error, or, but I'll let the finance director, if it's okay, speak to the issue.
So the payment is actually the same. I just put it all in interest instead of separating the two parts of the payment as principal and interest. And this is just to correct that so that when we close the end of the year, it shows up in the proper place.
Okay, are there any questions for the finance director before I invite the public up? Councilor McCoy?
So this is just rearranging money, there is no change, addition of money, it's just...
No, it's the same payment, and I believe it was originally budgeted for 120, because at the time we hadn't actually borrowed the money, and it's closer to 110, 100 of which is principal and 10 which is interest. Well, 9 something actually, but it's all sitting in the interest bucket, let's just say, and That's
It's been
not right.
accounted for, it's just some change where, how it's divided up.
Right, and they're considered two different departments and therefore has to come before you.
Okay, Counsel Winnie?
What is the interest and principal payment going towards?
It's a short-term, it's a ban for the additional money for the high school. We borrowed in advance for the high school,
That's
but
what I
not the
thought.
full project, and this is the interim until we finalize the project at the end of the month, probably.
So I thought it was the high school project, but.
Okay, any further questions for the Finance Director? Seeing none? If there's any member of the public who would like to step forward and address the council on this issue, please do so at this time. Seeing none? Councilor Hagan, you have the floor.
I'll make the following motion that the council approve the request for, interdepartmental request for $100,000 be transferred from interest expense, $100,000, and transferred to principal payment, $100,000. The purpose of which is to correct a existing budget appropriation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table for an interdepartmental transfer of $100,000 to correct the purpose for this existing budget appropriation from interest to principal. Is there any further comment on this motion? I have only one, and it's, I basically, since the line item numbers are so close, I can clearly understand why this sometimes might happen. But other than that, is there any further comment? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? None? Motion passes. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So
moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to close the public hearing section. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Back to the reports of standing committees, appointments. Council Winnie, you're up
Yes,
next.
thank you, Mr. President. We reviewed 2 mayoral appointments tonight. The first was for Anthony Corella, who applied for the plumbing and gas inspector position that we had open. We reviewed his resume that was included with the application and found him to be most qualified for this position. So the committee voted 3-0 in favor of going to the city council for that appointment. The second appointment was an appointment for Amber Bowles for the planning board. And that also passed 3-0 yes. She has an extensive background in environmental and biological things, so I think that would be, we all thought that would be a pretty good match to the planning board. So I'm going to do these 2 in separate motions. So the first motion I'm going to present to the council is that the pursuant to section 3.3 Easthampton Charter, following positions hereby recommended for appointment for approval: the Anthony Corella for plumbing and gas inspector with the term of expiration of December 31st, 2016.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to accept the mayoral appointment of Anthony Corella for the plumbing and gas inspector, expiration date of 12/31/16. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Council Winnie?
The second appointment is appointment for Amber Bowles to the planning board with her term of expiration of December 31st, 2016.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of the mayoral appointment of Amber Bowles to the planning board with the expiration date of 12/31/16. Is there any further comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank my colleagues for handling the committee meetings when I was out at the last meeting. But other than that, I have no other things to report. We have nothing in new business. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome, more than welcome. Councilor Derby, ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll start off with a little housekeeping. Both of the items on our agenda need extensions after today, so I would like to move that both the amendments regarding special permit process and Councilor Psychowski's request be extended for 60 days.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to extend both the request on the ordinance, the special permitting process, and the grant employees request from Council Psychowski for 60 days. Is there any further comment on
Yeah,
this
I have
motion?
one more announcement. We are going to be,
We're still voting on the motion.
sorry.
Any further comment on the motion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Council Derby, you have
Now
the
I
floor.
have one more announcement. I just want to let everybody know that we are meeting with the planning board on next Tuesday, which is October 8th at 6:30, to continue the public hearing regarding the special permitting process and the zoning amendments. It's on our agenda. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Property, Councilor Psychowski.
Yes, I got a little housekeeping to do. I'm gonna request a 90-day extension for the disposal of Payson Street School.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion on the table to extend the request for the disposal of Parsons Street School property. Is there any further comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions?
And also, we're
passes.
gonna schedule a meeting, and Salem is gonna take care of scheduling a meeting. I believe he'll take over right now and schedule it.
Okay. So we have a tentative meeting set for October 16th at 3:30 to tour the Parsons Street School, and we're waiting confirmation from the planner to see if that date works for her.
Could you, the date and time again, 15th,
The date is October 16th
16th?
at 3:30 in the afternoon. 3:30 in the afternoon. And that is, again, pending the planner's ability to attend.
Tentative.
I do understand that during working hours, that may be very difficult for the public to attend.
Yes,
If it's
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Question.
Councilman Clark?
Yeah, Council Derby, I assume that, although that there's a 90-day extension, I believe this is somewhat time sensitive. Is there the interest to move it along quicker than the 90 days?
That's why we're going to try to tour the building before it gets too cold,
Okay.
and look at what's happening there, so we can start moving the process along. And to clarify, this is a tour for the committee
Okay, understand.
of the building.
I got that now.
Not okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on property?
Agenda that.
Okay. Councilor Psychowski, you still
That's
have
the
the
end of the
floor?
report.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, new business, I'm going to ask Councilman McCoy if you could handle all of it, since most of it's yours anyways.
Sure.
We've got the two,
Yeah, I'll do the first two. I'd like to make a motion to move the request to review of the Mechanic Street parking restrictions to public safety.
Second.
okay, we have a motion on the table to move the request to review Mechanic Street and parking restrictions to public safety for review and consideration. Is there any further comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, and then I would also like to make a motion to move the street acceptance requests for Autumn Drive and Willow Circle also to public safety.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to move the request for street acceptances for Autumn Drive and Willow Circle to public safety for review and consideration. Is there any further comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. A couple of election warrants.
Yes, and the last one is we just are overwhelmed with elections in this state recently, and this is to approve the warrant for the election on Tuesday, the 5th day of November 2013, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., with the purpose being to cast the votes for mayor for a term of 2 years, city councilor at large for 4 years, for 4 persons for a term of 2 years, district city councilors 5 persons for a term of 2 years, and school committee members 6 for a term of 2 years. The polling places, as I mentioned earlier, are 1, 2, and 5 at Whitebrook Middle School, 200 Park Street, and 3 and 4 will be at Easthampton High School, 70 Wilson Avenue. And so this is, do we make a motion to vote on this warrant? Yes, and so in the form of a motion, I'd like to put that we accept the warrant as I just stated.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept the aforementioned warrant for the November 5th biennial city elections. Is there any further comment on this motion? Hearing none. Any objections or abstentions? Well, we've got to say motion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. You get lost there for a minute. Any objections or abstentions? Oh, Barbara has a copy. You got the second one.
Yes, and I guess this is on Tuesday, November 5th. Same day, right? So confusing. Same day. Very confused here. Same time, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. But this is to fill the empty seat for senator for the 2nd New Hampshire-Hampton district. So again, in the form of motion, I would like the city council to approve the warrant notifying the residents of this election on Tuesday, the 5th day of November, 7 to 8 p.m. for senator and general court. That's in the form of motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept the aforementioned warrant for the Senator and General Court for November 5th, 2013. Is there any further comment on this motion? Councilor Hagan?
Just a clarification from the clerk, there'll be two for the public, there's two separate ballots, right? But they will be given them when they come in.
They'll check
They
in.
won't have to ask for two, though,
Well,
or they
they'll-
will have to ask, I guess that's
They'll check
why.
in for the city election, and then if they wish to have the second one, they'll check in for the state. You don't have to vote in both, but of course you can.
So we will have to check in.
Check in
Same time, but
twice, check
twice.
out twice.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. I'll entertain. That concludes our
Motion
business.
to
President, I
adjourn.
have a question.
Okay, Councilor Rist?
The request for street acceptances has ignited my memory about a discussion I had, and I forget who with, regarding the plowing of private ways, which Northampton is dealing with right now. And I'm wondering if the Public Safety Committee could look into that, because I believe it could become an issue this winter when some private ways are not being plowed and others are. And I think in Northampton, I may be wrong about this, there's a state law that says you can't without a public approval of you plowing private ways. And I'm just wondering if Public Safety could take a look at that. If you need a motion for it, I'm happy to do it, but I'm concerned about that. I think the council should look into it, and whether there's any issue with doing that or not. We had a debate, I guess, at the Finance Committee on it, and I thought it's something we ought to look at.
Councilor
Respond.
McCoy, you want
Yes,
to comment
yeah,
first?
the acceptance for these streets takes quite a bit of replies from several different departments, so it's something that doesn't happen overnight, but so we are getting that kind of typical information done. Actually, Councilor Hagan had mentioned the same thing you had mentioned, which I think and Councilor Cobb had mentioned it, that there is a lot of stuff going on in Northampton, and just double checking MGLs to make sure that the procedure is being done correctly, not only for accepting but for snow plowing. So rest assured, we are on it, and we will.
Thank you.
Councilor Stokowski?
I believe that issue came up in the community before and it was looked at. So maybe somebody can find the old homework and we won't have to do so much work.
Okay. What I'd like to see, though, is before Public Safety actually looks into that, that some type of formal request to come before the council. That's our standard measure of getting it on their agenda, if you would like to do that. If you're doing it as an individual informally, that's a different story. Councilor Winnie?
I'm seeing a memo to the planning board from Jessica Allen, our city planner, and we'll CC to Jessica, but from Jim Gracia, our city engineer, that basically says that in the last paragraph, as you have noticed in recent newspaper articles concerning the practice of maintaining private ways by the city of Northampton, this is a subject which should be discussed soon before any new subdivisions are presented for approval. The city of Easthampton is in this same situation in regard to plowing unaccepted subdivision streets. A formal policy decision may ultimately be required by the city council. However, a discussion between the planning board and the Board of Public Works would be advisable to get things started. And he further goes to say, I would be willing to meet with the board at a future meeting to begin the dialogue. So I think that just says it all, that the planning board and the Department of Public Works need to start the dialogue, and as soon as they decide how they're gonna handle it, then
We have to.
if they have to come to us, then so be it.
That came from you from where?
This was to the city council. It was dated September 16th.
Couple weeks ago.
From Jim Gracia, well, CC to Jim from Jessica.
Did we get that?
Street acceptance requests. You must have.
It has to do with the street acceptance we already have.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not sure if everybody got it.
Counselor Hagan?
We did get that. I know it was written close to a year.
Yeah, I think it was just,
written a year
I think it
ago.
was just for public safety.
Well, this was written November 5th, 2012.
Right, so I said it was written a year ago, so I don't know what action, if any, has been taken this year.
So I'll restate, we do have an indication that some effort was made. If they'd like, public safety would like to address that, I would prefer that a request come before us to move the public safety, get it formally on their agenda if they feel that's necessary. I think that kind of concludes that topic. Is there any further debate on that? So seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to
I
adjourn.
move that the city council adjourn.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to adjourn. Any further comment on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.